So once again, welcome to everyone to our group, and let's start with our usual prayer. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramay, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukbhag Bhavet. In the last session, we talked about karma and destiny, providence and karma. And we also discussed the so-called contradiction in the statements that on the one hand, we reap the harvest of our karma, but on the other hand, we observe a lot of good people, lot of honest people, lot of people with compassion suffering, and on the other hand, we find a lot of living a very good life. So that contradiction we discussed in the last session, why this happens. Now today I would like to first discuss the close connection between karma and destiny, how it operates. And then we will go and define what is karma, because we have not defined karma as yet, karma. But let us first discuss the close-knit relationship between the two. And I have today uh, brought a conversation from Mahabharata. This is the conversation between Bhishma and Yudhishthir. Yudhishthir asked him the relationship between destiny and karma, and Bhishma replied. While replying, he said, "This is what Brahma told Vasishtha while explaining the relationship between karma and destiny." And I would like to summarize a few points based on that conversation. The first point is that without a seed germinate, neither the fruit nor the seed. A seed is a necessary requirement for the plant to come up, for the fruit, and also to have the next seed. Without that, nothing is possible. So that is the first requirement. The seed is the karma. The karma shows the seed, and based on that, all the further actions happen. The second part is the seed has to be sown in the earth. It will not fructify on its own unless you actually sow it. So the human effort has to come first before the seed can fructify and show its results. It will never show the results unless the human effort in the form of sowing the seed takes place. That is where the combination of the two. The human effort comes first and then the providence comes later. Once you sow the seed, then the outcome of that will depend on the rainfall, on the weather conditions, the wind conditions, the sun rays. All that will impact only after you have sown the seed. So human effort comes and then the providence comes later on. The destiny comes subsequently. And that is why the human effort must precede the providence. This is the first condition. Actually, there is a second condition. First condition, there must be a seed. Without seed, nothing is possible. Second condition, the seed must be sown. Therefore, the human effort must precede the providence. If there is no human effort, providence will not work. The destiny will not work. That is the third, very fundamental requirement. The fourth requirement is that even if the fire has been stopped, the fire is on. The wind could spread it far and wide. That is the destiny. There is in one place the fire is stopped, It may not spread, it can completely extinguish on its own. On the other place, the wind can take it far and wide and it can spread in far larger area. Hence, providence can change the outcome dramatically with human effort in support. That is how it works. The human effort has to be there, but the providence in the form of wind, in the form of rain, can affect that fire substantially. So this is the fourth impact of providence, but it all comes after human effort. Next comes when the oil is finished, the lamp is extinguished. It means when the human effort is finished, the providence is finished. The human effort and providence go together. There is no providence until human effort is there. So this is very, very fundamental requirement, and they are so closely knit with each other. I think this is what we need to understand. Even if providence and efforts are linked with each other, the wise always put their efforts. Only the cowards talk of providence. Because providence is not under your control. The wise people depend on their action. They put forward their best foot and they do use all their capabilities to make their action strong. And they ignore the providence because providence is beyond your control. Whatever form it comes, it comes. And that is why they have said that the wise put emphasis on the efforts, the action, and the fools put more emphasis on providence. That is the difference. So if we put more emphasis on our efforts, I think the results would be far, far better. Then the next point in that debate is, whatever is considered good, one must do. That is a requirement. He who abandons effort and only waits providence to take effect is inviting disaster. Therefore, we must not abandon our efforts. Efforts has to continue. If we abandon our effort and wait for providence, it means we are inviting disaster for ourselves. So this is a very clear conversation between Bhishma and Yudhishthira. There are a few more points here. Learning, courage, dexterity, strength and patience. 5 things. Learning, courage, dexterity, strength and patience. These are 5 natural friends in the exercise of your doing action. When you are doing action, make use of these 5 friends. Let me repeat them. Learning, courage, dexterity, strength and patience. If you take help of these 5 friends while doing your action, you will definitely have very good results. There's no doubt about it. So these 5 friends we should keep in mind while actually performing our actions. And then the last thing, which is that I shall do my best. Whatever is in my power, I will do, and I will leave the destiny to the Almighty. Whatever happens, happens. That is the final result. So let me repeat. Firstly, a seed is a must before a fruit comes and before the new seed comes. The seed must be sown in the earth in order it can fructify. That is the human effort. Human effort must precede before providence happens. Then those who are wise, they give emphasis on human effort and they use all the abilities to put in that effort. Those who are not so wise, they depend more on providence, which is not such a good thing. So this is what we have to do in our life. In our life, we have to give emphasis on our efforts. Providence will join us. If it joins us, it's fine. If it doesn't join, doesn't matter. But we have to put in our effort to the best of our ability. So this is the combination of providence and action. Providence and destiny is the same thing. So providence and action, they are always combined, and the outcome comes out of the combination of the two, impacted by the time factor, the Kal Tattva. The time factor impacts on these two to bring out the final outcome of our action. And that is why life is not arithmetic. Because whatever we do, and if we reap the harvest of it, it will become arithmetic. It will be like, okay, I'm, giving this particular thing to XYZ, and then I will get in return the other thing from XYZ. But this is not true in practical life. It does not happen because of the factor of providence which comes into play, the factor of time which comes into play. So now I think this point is very clear that providence has its role, but human being has no control over that, and therefore we should not depend on providence. We should depend on our action. But if the action does not yield the desired outcome, we should not regret it, because if the desired outcome happens, then life will not be mysterious. The mystery of life actually lies in the fact that the outcomes are not as per our desire. That is why the mystery of life lies. So now from there we will move to karma. What is karma? We have discussed everything else, but we don't know what the karma is. Now this is a uh, very profound question. To understand karma is it's not easy, it's very difficult. First of all, you decide not to do anything. You sit down on a chair at home and relax. Are you doing a karma or not? That is the question. Yes, you are doing a karma. Because if you consciously decide to sit down in your chair and rest for the whole day, it is your choice. You have taken that decision, and therefore it is your karma. If you decide to lie down in the bed and just sleep all day, is it your karma? Yes, it is also your karma, because you have consciously taken a decision to lie down in the bed and relax for the whole day. Therefore, that is your karma. Anything which you consciously decide to do for yourself, whether it is what we call निष्कर्म, अगर आप निष्कर्म भी करना चाहते हैं कॉन्शियसली, इवन दैट इज कर्म. निष्कर्म भी कर्म है अगर आप उस पे कॉन्शियसली डिसीजन ले लेते हैं करने का. So this is one first thing about the karma. What is karma? That whatever consciously you decide to do is karma. Now secondly, you close your sense organs and you do not do karma, but you think about those things in your mind all the time. For example, you want to earn a lot of wealth, but you do not act on that. But all the time in your mind, you keep thinking about wealth and earning of wealth. Is it karma? Yes, that is also karma. If you forcefully prevent your sense organs from action and then think about those objectives and things in your mind all the time, it means it is even worse. It is in Bhagavad Gita, it has been said by Krishna that in that case you are mithyachari, that your acharan, your action, your achar is mithya, is false. So if forcefully decide not to do something, but you keep thinking about it in your mind all the time, it is also karma, and actually it is worse than karma because it is a very perverted action. That is why you will find a lot of people who convert themselves to sannyasis. They abandon the so-called world of action, go to Himalayas or go to some ashram, and still they keep thinking about this sansar and the things of this sansar. It means they are not really giving up the karma. They are actually thinking about the karma in their mind, and therefore their conduct is even worse than the normal human being who is living in this world and acting according to his desires. So that is the second very important point, that whether you do action or whether you prevent yourself forcefully from doing an action, and then you keep thinking in your mind that I should do that, I should do this, and that actually leads to a very perverted conduct. Whether you do actually or not, but even the thought process means you are doing the karma. So that is the second important point in doing the karma. The third point is, this is a very little bit contradictory, but this is a fact, that you do karma as per the combination of three gunas in your body. Your body is made of Raj, Sat, Raj, Tam. These three gunas are a natural seed in the physical existence. It is part of the Prakriti, these three gunas. The whole physical universe is made of these three attributes. And since our body is physical, it has these three attributes. And so is the case of senses and mind. So you act according to the combination of these three forces in your physical body. If that is so, what is your role? You are acting as per the nature. What is your role? That is a very big question. And these three verses uh, have been defined in third chapter of Gita, verses 4, 5, and 6. The first verse tells you that even if you reduce yourself to niskarm purposefully, that is also karma. Second one, if you do not do any action but you keep thinking about those things in your mind, that is mithyachar. And the third one is that you act according to the combination of these three attributes of nature in your body. Now the third one puts you in a very perplexing situation, that if I am acting according to the natural combination of these three attributes, what is my role in that process? Whatever I'm doing naturally. Yes, in certain ways you are right, but you have a role. Because it's like a software made for you to, access certain websites on your laptop. Now, if you apply that software automatically, you will achieve the result which is inbuilt in the software. But you can modify that software according to your wishes. If you don't want to go to certain sections of that software, you can leave that aside, you can add some sections, and that is where the human role comes. And we need to modify the combination of these three guna, these three attributes of nature which are in our body. We have to keep improving upon them. That is a very major process. How we improve from tamogun to rajogun, from rajogun to satgun, that is what you call rise of human consciousness. And finally, you go beyond the three attributes. That is the ultimate rise, but you have to rise from tamogun to rajogun to satgun and then beyond that. So this rise is called human effort for raising our own consciousness. And unless we raise our consciousness, we cannot really improve our life. So this is a very fundamental concept which to some extent looks fatalistic. No, but it is not so. You have the capability to improve upon this combination of three attributes of nature inside in your body, in your sense organs. And that is where your mind and intellect come into play, your knowledge comes into play. There should be a determination to improve. That is what we call sankalp shakti. You have to have that power of sankalp to uh, to enforce that discipline in your body and your senses, to see that you rise from, slowly in this nature of tribute in attributes from tamogun to rajogun and then to satgun. So these are very important points, but still it does not fully clarify what is karma. Now there is a word called kriya. Kriya means a natural process of your existence, of your body. You feel hungry, which is natural. You don't induce yourself to feel hungry. It just happens. And then you eat food to satisfy your hunger. Now that is primarily kriya. It is not a karma. You feel sleepy and you to satisfy sleep you sleep. That is primarily kriya. But it is not entirely kriya. I'll explain you why. It's primarily kriya. The natural activities of the body which you do, whether it is thirst, whether it is hunger, whether it is sleep, these are primarily kriya to the extent that you do not put your desire into it. For example, you feel hungry and you say, no, I only want to eat parathas today. I only want to eat chola bhatura. Now that is not kriya. There your action comes into play because you have added your desire there. So as soon as you add your desire to an action, to a kriya, it becomes action. So this is what it's a subtle difference. One has to understand this in a subtle way. So here the two things: the natural process of body. When you are fulfilling the natural desires of body, these are not desires, requirements or needs of the body, then it is kriya. Like you're breathing in and out. It's not an action, it's a kriya. You don't do anything, it just happens automatically. You feel thirsty, you drink water. It is not an action, it's just a kriya in certain ways. But if you decide not to drink purposefully, then it becomes action. Because then you will harm your body. And if you drink too much of water which is not needed, then it also becomes action. Similarly, whatever food is available to you to eat to satisfy your hunger, that is kriya. But if you want it to be very special, want to add this or that and quantity, you want all the changes in quantity and quality, then it becomes action. And similarly for sleep, uh, so far as it is absolutely natural, then it is kriya. But when your desire comes and adds its role to the entire process, then it becomes action. So now I think it should be clear what is kriya, what is karma, and how the karma can be in a variety of forms. Karma actually originates from your desire. Your desire is the foundation of karma. That is what we also understood earlier when we talked about Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. That the first thought comes, the thought converts into will, and will into determination, and determination into action. So that process, when it happens, it is action. When that process doesn't happen, it is kriya. It's just a natural process. So now 4 points here. Anything related to our physical needs of the body, if it is performed automatically without pushing it in any direction through the enforcement of our desires, then it is kriya. But as soon as we enforce our desires on that, then it becomes karma. It is not kriya, then it becomes karma. That is one thing. Second thing, whatever purposefully you decide, even if you decide to sleep whole day, you remain niskriya whole day, even that is action, even that is karma. Niskriyata is also karma if it is decided by you purposefully. Then, if you abandon the action forcefully and think about those things in your mind, that is even worse. That is, of course, a karma, but it is perverted karma. It is mithyachar. It is beyond that. And then we talked about the three attributes of nature. Uh, uh, Tamogun, Rajogun, and Satgun. That these attributes of these combination of these three attributes force us to do action on its own. That is how the nature works. But we can modify that through our will. We can raise that level. We can raise that bar from tamogun to rajogun to satgun in a purposeful way to raise our consciousness higher and higher and higher. And once we reach there, we can actually go beyond all the three attributes, and that would be the highest level of consciousness one can achieve in human life. So this is how the karma theory works. We have discussed what is karma and what is not karma. Now one more thing. This is the last thing about the karma, that nobody can abandon karma completely. It is not possible. सर्वथा कर्मों का त्याग संभव नहीं है. आपको even for living your life, even to live your life in this existence, you have to do action. And therefore don't think that you can get rid of actions. No. Anybody who takes sannyas and tell you that I'm abandoning this world, I'm not doing anything, it's wrong. It's not possible. Nobody can take that kind of sannyas. Sannyas is actually to ignore the outcome of the action, not to do action. There's a big difference in that you ignore the outcome, you don't bother yourself with the positive or negative result of that action, but you take it as it comes. That is sannyas. Sannyas is not to abandon the world and go to Himalayas and not do action, because there also you cannot abandon action. Action will always be associated with life. Living a life means action. You cannot live a life without action. It's not possible. In fact, every moment of our life, we are doing some action. Every moment of our life. And therefore, action and life are absolutely bound together. They cannot be divorced. They cannot be segregated. It's not possible. And therefore, we have to not abandon the effort. We have to abandon or ignore the outcome of our efforts. If it is positive, if it is negative, doesn't matter. We continue on the path of our rightful actions. And in that path of action, we have to take help of those 5 friends. Those 5 friends, let me repeat them again. Learning, courage, dexterity, strength, and patience. These 5 friends will help you in that path of karma. If you do all your actions with those with the help of these five friends, life would be absolutely fine. If you don't get the result in the current life immediately, you will get that later on subsequently. As we discussed in the last session, the result of our action may come immediately, may come after few weeks, may come after few months, may come after a lifetime, may come even after few lifetimes. Because the time scale of nature is very different than our time scale. And I can explain this with a small example. For example, I slap somebody, I abuse and slap somebody. Now that guy has many options. He can abuse and slap me straight away. That is the outcome, straight outcome. He can keep it in mind and say, okay, I'll take this revenge when the time comes. And when the next occasion comes after a few months, he really hits me hard in a certain situation where I am very vulnerable. That is the way he can take. Thirdly, he can wait and wait and wait. And he can even take that revenge on my children. Okay, your father did me this, now I'm doing it to yours, children. So you don't know how the person will react. So the reaction can happen in a different phases, in different context, in different culture, in different time scales. And that is why the outcome of our actions is not necessarily immediate, not necessarily proportionate to the action, not necessarily visible to us. It can come in very different forms, and that form is actually we call providence or destiny. And that is how the two are combined. What action of yours will germinate fruit at what time, we don't know how it happens. And that is the mystery of life. So I think I will stop here. Basically, we conclude the fundamentals of the law of karma, but I'll be happy to answer questions. And as proposed by some of our colleagues, we can actually have more discussion on these issues based on the questions that can be put on the WhatsApp. And taking those questions forward, we can have further debate and invite contribution from each one of you. So thank you very much once again, and I'll be happy to answer questions if you have any right now, and then we can change our format of question answers in the subsequent sessions.